Now, I want to jump to the second name, or the second disciple in verse 18. I'm going to let you run with this, because it says here his name is Andrea. Now, we know him in English as Andrew.
Yes.
And in Greek, he's called Andreas. And I texted you the other day, and I said, Keith, this name, Andrea, you have a son named Andrew. Why is he called Andrew?
It gets deeper than that, Nehemia. So for those who don't know, I have 3 sons. And when we had a third son, my wife, whose name is Andrea, was convinced that it was going to be a little girl, though I knew it was going to be a little boy. And I told her that. A little tension. So she's pregnant and we're trying to find out. And we decided not to go to the doctor to find out if it was a boy or a girl. But she was convinced it was going to be a little girl. And out comes Andrew. So why did we name him Andrew? One, for the idea of him being the disciple, but there's an underlying issue, which was, since it wasn't the little girl, we'll name Andrew kind of after his mom.
Okay. But what does the word Andrew mean?
So
Andrea,
here's the thing.
Andrew?
So I did something really interesting when you texted me.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to ask Andrea, why did your mom call you that? And she said, well, because she had a friend who knew someone named that, and she said she thought it was a French name, and she liked the way it was Andrea. Oh. So that's why she named her, nothing more. And I started looking in other places. What does this name mean? And of course, I wasn't really thinking about that until you asked me the question. And I found in Latin what it would mean, and
So what did you find in Greek? What does it mean in Greek?
And that has to do with the word for man. I think they even say that in some of the languages they say that if it's a woman, it means brave, but it really means man. So.
So it's related to the word anthropos,
yes,
but it's obviously a variant of it with a delta, and not a theta.
Mm-hmm.
So Andreas means something like brave, strong, courageous.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that name in Hebrew.
Yes,
the name is Gever. 1 Kings 4:19. There's a man actually in the part in northern Israel in Gilead called Gever the son of Uri. So, and then we have the name Gabriel, which means mighty one of God, right? Gabriel is a longer form of the name Gever. So it's possible that Andrew's Hebrew name was Gabriel or Gever.
Now, Nehemia, you're going to appreciate this.
Yeah.
When Andrea went to China, she has her passport. Yeah. True story.
Yeah. Yeah.
On her passport, it made the mistake of female to male. So when she goes to do her test, before you go through the process, you have to go through this physical and all that stuff. The doctor clearly sees that my wife is not a male. She's a female. But on the passport, it said male. This is deep. That's hilarious. The Chinese say. But it says male. But she's a female. But it says male.
Right. Dealing with bureaucracy.
They had to change the whole thing. But again, back to the source of the name, they use for a woman that she is brave, but really it comes from man. Like, so.
Well, I want to raise the possibility that maybe Andrew in the New Testament in this verse, Andreas or Andrea, in the Greek form, that maybe his Hebrew name was something like Gever or Gavriel.
Whoa.
And just as Shimon has the name Petrus and Kepha, we actually see in the Tanakh that there were people who had multiple names. Joseph has the name Tzofnat Paneach. Daniel 1:7 talks about how Daniel and his 3 companions both have their Hebrew names and they have their Aramaic names. So Daniel's Aramaic name is Belshazzar, and his 3 friends, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, are called famously, what are they called? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right?
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
There you go, exactly. So those are their Aramaic names. So it's very possible that Andrew had this Greek name, and maybe people called him Andrew. But then when they called him up to read from the synagogue, maybe they called him Gever, or maybe his name was actually Andrew. And I was very surprised. My assumption was, honestly, when I started reading this, Keith, I thought, okay, when it says Andrea here, what somebody did is they took the Hebrew name and they put in the Greek or some other European name here so that they would be familiar when they were debating with the Christians. Okay, even though it said here something in Hebrew, we've now put in the Greek name so we know what they're talking about when they bring up these foreign names. And that is a possibility that we'll talk about in a minute. However, I was very surprised. I just did a search to prove that the name Andrew never appears in Jewish sources. And what do I find? There's a rabbi in the Jerusalem Talmud Rabbi Chanina bar Andrai. Rabbi Chanina, the son of Andrew, written as Andrai with an aleph or a yud. It's written both ways. It's also in Bereshit Rabbah he's mentioned. And then there's a man also in the Jerusalem Talmud called Bar Andrai, the son of Andrai, or the son of Andrew. So Andrew was a name that there's even rabbis who were named after, who had this name Andrew. So I was very surprised to see that. I had assumed this was, a Greek name, that no Jew would ever be called Andrew, and that maybe his name was originally Gever or Gavriel, and then they transliterated it when they, translated it, and then in Hebrew Matthew it was changed. But maybe he was actually called Andrew.